Is everybody here for questions? Cool. Oh, why am I not getting audio? Oh, sorry, the Maker Made team should be here on here in just a second. Sorry, I got chickens.
It's just nobody's talking, Drew.
They're mad. I'm out of mealworms, so they're refusing to leave me alone right now. Everybody here looking for. Well, there's some. Yeah, I'll chase them out real quick.
How goes it, everybody? I apologize for being a couple minutes late.
I was warming them up for you. You're good.
There we go. I'm looking to see. We don't have anything in chat right now, so if anyone has any questions, feel free to kick us off, and we'll just start working through problems or just questions or general conversation that anybody has. That we just kind of leave this open to be whatever everyone needs it to be. So just feel free to share if you have something you're stuck on or just questions that you need answered.
I had a quick question about the frame setup if you're using the wall mounts versus the freestanding frame. Is there a different set of instructions to go about that, or is there a way to easily adapt the instructions for that wall mount frame?
There's the instructions. So if you go to makermade.com and there's a resources page, yep. And then there'll be an option for M2 resources. There should be some documentation on that page about specifically how to set up the wall mount themselves. Now, do you have an M2? I'm assuming if you have the wall mount.
Yep.
Yeah, there should definitely be a document on there about like all the dimensions and everything that you're looking for when using the wall mounted frame setup.
Okay.
And if you want to, like I still use the M1 frames for mine, just because even my M2s, just because I put them on casters, and so it makes it easy to roll around, do other stuff. So if you don't want to do a wall mount, and there's a bunch of other people that are doing some really cool frames too, but I just stuck with the original frames just because it was easier to put them on casters.
Gotcha. All right, thank you.
I've got a quick question if nobody else has anything right now.
Yeah, what you got?
Well, I'm just building my frame and mounting the sled and everything. And I had to make a mount for the larger, I'm going to use a larger Bosch router. At what height do you set that router above the sled? I couldn't.
Yeah, so that is 100% your choice. So you'll have the Z-axis plate that raises and lowers.
Correct.
And me personally, I will vary my router depth in the clamp based on the bit that I'm using. So if I'm using a much longer bit, I'll raise the router up to give myself clearance so that I can properly zero the bit out and get the desired plunge that I have. And then there's times that I'll raise it lower. It really just depends on the length of the bit that you're using and how deep into your material you're wanting to cut.
So when you're zeroing the bit on the Z-axis, where do you put do you put it in the middle? Do you put it towards the top for going down, for the bottom for going up? Where?
Yeah, so when you zero your axis, I use I call it like my bit loading height is when the Z-axis is all the way up. And then whenever you're gonna zero the Z-axis before you start a cut, you're going to bring the axis down until the bit just touches the surface of your cut material, and then that would be the 0 position for the z-axis. So a lot of you have manual controls over jogging the z-axis, so you can drive it up or down at your leisure before you start a cut to choose, that position that's going to be best for you. But a lot of times, just the length of the bit that you're using will dictate a lot of the position of the Z before you start your project.
Okay, thanks.
I'm coming from, I got the upgrade from a Maslow to an M2. When setting up the chains, I know in the Maslow with ground control, there was a lot of calibration where you have the gear sockets upright, and it seems on the M2 that you just throw it around the chain, around the sprockets and connect it to the sled. Is that true?
Yeah, so if you are you using the Makerverse application?
Yeah, I just started to use Makerverse, yeah.
Okay, so in Makerverse version 1.0.6, it was very much based off of setting the sled, manually setting your sled in the center of your wasteboard, and then manually, adjusting the chain slack over the gear so that it's static. And then you're just setting, hey, this is my home position. I'm just telling you this is 0, 0, 0. Because the way that software is set up is we know the known distance of each chain. And so we can calculate that math once you say that you are centered on your wasteboard.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in the newest version of Makerverse, which is 1.1.2.
Yeah, that's what I'm running.
Okay, yeah. So in 1.1.2, the calibration flow of that, there is a procedure where you can measure your chains similar to with the ground control calibration aspect.
Yeah, that's part of the initial setup for a new workspace.
Yep.
So should we do that or not? And if you do that, how do you get control your sprockets, the motor, so the sprocket is pointing up?
There should be some. You may have to go out and use the jog commands outside of the calibration widget, but that's actually a great piece of insight work. We're doing some touches. We're getting ready to push out an update to Makerverse, so I can make sure that makes it in there.
Okay. So it's something I should not worry about right now, or should I?
Yeah, no, it's not. It's nothing major. So where you see edge calibration and then precision calibration options, those are what will help you compensate for if your gear was 12 degrees off when you did your previous measurements. Is we like to use more of the feedback from the end user to dial the machine in, rather than say, hey, here's all the measurements that I have, and here's the chain length and everything, and then now everything should be good. Because we know that there's a lot of external factors that are going to make calibration for you a little different than calibration for me. And so we like to get that user feedback as part of the calibration process so that we can perform those little individual tweaks on everyone's machine via the software.
So with the new version of Makerverse, should I just skip the initial calibration step and just go to what your video shows?
Yeah, so the default, that chain length in Makerverse was put in there in the event that, say, you want to run the 15-foot chains or the 12-foot top beam, or you purchased a Maslow kit from another vendor. That this will allow you to properly calibrate any variant of Maslow to the Makerverse application. But if your original Maslow was purchased from Maker Made, then that chain, that's the same chain that we use on the M2. And that is actually the default chain length in the Makerverse application.
So I bought it from Bar.
Okay, same
So it's
exact
11
thing.
footer.
Yep, we picked.
Okay.
So we just picked up his supply chain for the chains. Man, I've said chain way more times than I've ever thought that I have. But yeah, so that's the default length is the chains that you have. That's why our documentation says you can move beyond that, because we have made sure that some of those things are the default value in the applications. Same thing like when you say, oh, I have the round sled from Maker Made. We have the dimensions and everything already put in the back end of the software for you.
All right, so I'll connect to a new workspace, but I won't have to run through the calibration procedures that pop up. I'll just do the manual calibration that you.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. And it should, absolutely.
Hi guys, my name's Erica, and I know that this chat is for questions, and it seems like you guys have way more experience than I do. So really was wondering if there was maybe a video or some call that would help with the setup and calibration, because it seems that I'm getting an error. And I've read the information online, but for some reason, I'm still struggling.
Which error are you seeing?
It seems that the machine is just not, it's not recognizing what home is. It's not centered. When I've gone through the calibration on the C axis, is when I test it out, it's not moving.
Okay.
So,
And which version of Makerverse are you using?
1.1.2.
Okay, perfect. Okay. And you've gone through the calibration and it's still not functioning properly?
I think I've gone through the calibration, to be honest. So to really, and I thought of just maybe doing like, just wipe all the settings and just start from zero again. Which is why I was asking if there was such a Zoom call. I noticed this was being recorded, so I figured I would ask if there was some Zoom call that maybe somebody has gone through that process where I can just watch it 1,000 times.
We have some documentation on, so if you go to makerverse.com, there's some tutorials and documentation that are very specific to like the calibration and setup process using 1.1.2. We're working on getting some video content around that. That would be more of like a YouTube video or something like that that we can reuse and publish somewhere. But we don't have anything like super specific to your situation. I do know if you would like to start over, if you go to the settings tab in Makerverse, under workspaces, you have the option to delete the workspace that you've created, and then setting up a new space would then walk you through the whole calibration process again.
Okay.
But I think we can get you on going. Another thing, another great resource is on our Facebook group. So we have the Maker Made CNC owners group, and there are thousands of people that have gone through all of this process before, and you usually get a response like within 5 minutes of posting a question in there.
Okay, great. Thank you. On the documents that you mentioned, that's just under like the tutorials, the installation, that's where you're referring to, where I can find the documents, right?
Yes, ma'am. And if you are still stuck,
Thank you.
feel free to send an email to support@makermade.com, and that will open a help desk ticket. And then one of our amazing support guys will be able to reach out to you and get some detailed information about your situation, and then get you back on track.
Thank you very much. Would you mind repeating that email one more time?
It is support@makermade.com.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey Chris, I just hopped in. This is Mike.
Oh, there's Mike. So Mike is one of our support guys. Amazing. He helps hundreds of people get set up and calibrated. So you'll definitely be in great hands if you do need to reach out.
And I think I have talked to Mike in the past as well. He helped me with an issue. So thank you. I will.
Awesome. Just go ahead and send me a message, and then I'll go ahead and see when I have time. I'm booked today, but I have some availability tomorrow. I can get with you tomorrow. Just send me a message. But if I do have someone, because I do have some customers that I have scheduled with, and they won't answer or something comes up, and I'll have time, I can go ahead and fill you in if you don't mind.
That would be great.
Of course, it depends on your availability as well.
No, this is top priority. So thank you. Yes.
Yeah, of course. Awesome. Just send me a message to support@makermade.com.
Will do. Thank you.
Of course. Any other questions?
I have a question. So I'm using Makerverse 1.1.2, and last night I was going through the calibration steps for the chain length, and you might have been already talking about this at the beginning of the meeting. Sorry, I apologize if you have to repeat some of the stuff that I missed, but so I was going through the calibration process of where you're measuring your chains, and so I used the technique of putting that cotter pin and joining the chains up and bringing it all the way up to the top of the beam and getting it centered in the middle there. And then when I go back down, the cotter pin remains in the middle of my wasteboard. And so when it comes at that point to reattach my sled, I attach it, but then the weight of the sled pulls it down, and it's not in the center of my wasteboard anymore. It's actually a little bit, probably like 2 centimeters off to the left. So I have to jog it back up to the center. And then when it comes to the point of where it says find center, and I click that button, it'll stay in the middle of my wasteboard along the y-axis, but it'll go up. It'll stay at 0 for X, but it'll go up at least maybe 4 millimeters for the Y, and then I'll enter in the error of 4 millimeters. Is that correct? Is that the process that should take place when I'm calibrating my chains?
Are you using MDF as your wasteboard?
No, it's plywood.
Okay. I know we've seen this quite a bit when people use MDF, because MDF is actually an inch wider than regular 4x8 spec. It's not a major issue on the step that you're on, because when you get to like edge calibration, that's where it will ask you for some user input on where you are, where the sled is in reference to the waste surface, and it can kind of adjust for that. And then there's some chain sag calculations that happen as well. I would say that it's not a major issue right now, especially if it's like 4 millimeters is not a number that would be hard for the firmware to accommodate. The other thing that I would say though is using the M2, the M2 chains and in any standard configuration purchased from Maker Made, our chains are the default value for chain length in Makerverse.
Okay, so I really probably didn't have to do any of that chain calibration then?
Correct. I mean, I don't want you to feel like it was time wasted. It's still a step that is helping your machine. But moving forward, if you wanted to skip that step, you're not going to be at a major impact to your accuracy.
Okay. Because like during that process, I noticed it started talking about like, where it tells you to make the mark on the chain with the marker. And this says like, this will allow you to, if your chains ever get thrown off its sprockets, it'll allow you to find the exact center of your wasteboard. If, so is that the point? Is that the point of it? Is just to set your.
Yep. It's trying to, it's giving you an opportunity to get everything centered so that you have a visual reference and a method of marking these known distances, so that if you're ever in a situation where you need to take the chains off or you need to remove the sled, you have a way of visually verifying that everything has been put back together in homed position. Another thing that we've done that I kind of this is what I personally do, and I apologize, Mike, if this isn't best practices, but I like to set my sled at that center point and then manually just adjust my chains over the sprocket to where it's sitting kind of exactly where I want it to be, and then I can mark my chains after manually setting it to 0. There are people out there that can do it by rolling the chains out and using software that can do it faster than they can manually. Just me personally, I can manually set to 0 by physically adjusting my chains faster than I can using the software. So that's just kind of a method that I choose. And that initial step, that's really the end goal, is let's get the sled sitting in what we expect the 0, 0, 0 position on the waste surface to be, and then give you an opportunity to mark those visual reference points on the chain in the event that you need to take the machine apart for anything.
Okay. And so the second question I had regarding home was, if I was just making normal cuts and I wanted it, so if I wanted to set it to home, I'm always hitting reset chains. For this version of Makerverse, I hit reset chains and that will center it to home, correct? Is that how you do that?
There should be a home button in the middle of the jog controls on the upper right hand corner. There'll be a home button, and then that will take the machine back to the 0, 0, 0 position as well. The one thing that reset chains will do that is different than the home button. So the home button will take into account any work offset that you have for a project. So say, I've already cut something out of the left side of this sheet of plywood. I need to cut this project out of the right side. You can create a work offset that creates a temporary home position for the project file that you have loaded. And then the home button will always respond to that temporary home that you have created. Whereas reset chains is going to be that override that will just take you back to the middle of your waste surface, regardless of any work offset that exists.
Okay. And so the machine will know 0, 0 then. Like if so you said, like, if I set this temporary home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so
I guess I'm trying to differentiate how do I set up, like you said, like a temporary home versus the main home of 0, 0.
Yeah, and we have I know that we just published some videos on YouTube that kind of go around some of the steps of using a workplace home versus a machine home. So the way that I kind of keep it straight in my mind is machine home is always going to be the dead center of my waste surface. Whereas a work or a project home is really just where I told the machine that I want my file to be cut out at. And then that gives you the ability to fully maximize the usage of an entire sheet without getting into some G-code trickery in like easel, because we've seen where users they'll kind of do a rough calculation of where the file needs to be cut out and then move it to that spot in their easel file when they create their G-code. And then that's the project home or work home eliminates the need for doing those measurement calculations within the G-code. That way you have repeatable projects. I just have one G-code file. You know, say I end up putting out 20 welcome signs. I can use my work offsets to cut all of this same exact G-code file in different locations on the waste surface, rather than having to go in and create a new G-code file each time that I want to move the project around the work surface.
Okay. So, and that's created like you said, like an easel itself, like setting. Is that the temporary home then? Is that like the location
No, so
where you set?
the temporary home will be on the machine itself. In the upper right hand corner where you see your jog controls, and there's like the 6 number boxes where it'll show you what the machine, the X, Y, and Z coordinates of the machine position. So if you drive the machine to like the upper left hand corner, you know, you'll have a negative X number and a positive Y, and then, you know, wherever your Z position is. So once you do that, there's like a little button, like a little GPS pin underneath that, and then you can declare that X and that Y as your temporary workplace home. And then once you do that, or work offset is what it's called in the software. So once you declare a work offset, you're telling the machine, hey, all location calculations that you do for the project file I'm about to run should reference this location as 00. And then after I'm done cutting it, I can remove that work offset. And then the machine knows, okay, I'm at -100, +100. So when I remove the work offset, I need to go 100 in the X and -100 in the Y to return to true 0.
And you do that just by hitting reset change, because then it'll find its true home.
Yep, you can use reset change, and there's also a remove offset button in the software as well. We try to give you a couple different methods to operate. That way, it's just kind of like a fail safe. If something gets, you know, boogered up on one feature, you have a way to override it and get back to what you're trying to do. And then another thing too is, if your machine ever gets like stuck in the upper left and pressing home doesn't make it go somewhere, you can always jog it back and then redeclare that 00. And I know some of this, I have a problem of just like saying every possible answer that I have for a question, so I apologize for that. But hopefully this gives you some information to where you feel confident in progressing forward in your assembly.
Yeah, it does. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Anybody else have a question? And in the absence of a question, has anyone made anything awesome that they want to show everybody? Because I think that kind of breathes a little bit of life into people that are stuck and frustrated, just to see, you know, successful cuts that others are making with their machines.
I've got a tabletop over here I can show you offhand. Kind of fun. I took it on the table and did a Texas star and good for fun. So nothing fancy, but
That's awesome. What kind of bit did you use for that?
that one was just the. What was that one? I don't know which one to use for that one. I think it was just a regular down cut, but I can't. It wasn't a big move, but it looks like just a regular down cut by the cut.
That's pretty awesome.
So I've got a, we discuss later, but I've got the scope and the signal generator hooked up. Oh man, Mike's got the M300.
See that? I built that last night.
Hey, how are you liking your M300?
I love it. I just got it a couple days ago, and I love it.
Oh, that's so awesome.
It is.
What is that, PLA or what did you do? Or what'd you do?
Yeah, PLA.
Cool.
I'm pretty partial to the 3D printers too.
I have a bunch of years ago. I bought a bunch of NinjaFlex. Went back when before TPU stuff was really good. And so I have tons of filament that we also use just for around here. That was horrible to print with, but we use for random stuff. It's great for tying things down with.
Yeah, tying things down with, exactly.
So
Nice.
Yeah,
Well,
my girl, use this weed eater string? I'm like, no, it's not a weed eater.
Let's see. So nobody has any. We've got quite a few people on here. Is there anything that anyone wants to talk about, or I hate just everyone logging in to hear me talk about random stuff. So if there is a topic that would be helpful, please let me know.
if I get to zoom, I don't know if you can see it. Wait, zoom. Ah, dang it.
Matt, you got any questions today, Matt?
Yep. Yeah, I do. I've been working on doing some fan art kind of stuff, and I just got a V-bit, but easel has anytime you do a V-carve in easel, that's a pro thing. So I'm trying to experiment with figuring out how to figure this out, because I don't know if easel's right for me.
So I'll tell you,
pay for it yet.
The only thing that you get from the V-bit feature in easel is the toolpath simulation.
Okay.
So as long as you know what the cut head distance or the value of your depth of cut that the bit is actually capable of, then you can do some just some knowledge, known math on your side where it's like, hey, oh, my cut head is only 11 millimeters deep on this 15-degree V, then that's your maximum depth that you can go with that bit. So if you were to go an easel and say, hey, let me take this V bit to 22 millimeters, it's probably not going to be an awesome result.
Yeah.
But as far as that, the main thing that a V-bit processor in easel will do is it kind of makes pocket cuts impossible. It trims away some of those settings to prevent you from making an error with the V-bit. But as long as you're just doing like path-based things, like you're wanting to, V-bits are awesome for putting text into a piece of a material. You can use easel and just tell it that it is a standard spiral. I think they have like a custom bit
Yep.
option where you just tell it the diameter, and
Yep.
then you just tell it its regular diameter, and then just you'll have to play around with some of the depths. But you can, if you have some calipers, you can make kind of like a chart. I use easel a lot for VBit, and what I did is I just made a quick like it turned into an Excel spreadsheet, but it started out just writing on like a whiteboard. And I took a couple of my V-bits and some digital calipers, and I measured a few depths of the V-bit, broke it up into like 4 quadrants, and then each of those quadrants, I just measured the width of the cutter at that point. And then I knew, like, okay, if I go to 4 millimeters, I'm gonna have a 5 millimeter width at the top of that V cut. So it's 100% possible to run a V-bit using easel. It requires you to know a little bit more about the bit that you are using, and be kind of aware of what it's capable of, so that you don't accidentally select a pocket cut with a V-bit.
Sure. Yeah, I did that with this example here. I told it that I had a 1/16 inch bit, and then I just put a V-bit in there and told it to dig about 3.5 millimeters deep. And I wasn't doing it scientifically like you're talking about. That sounds much better. I was just kind of, this is my first attempt, and it looks okay. It just, it wasn't as smooth. And then I found a different program called Carve, and on that one I told it how deep it was, and obviously they're different sizes. I on Carve I couldn't figure out how to clip this circle off of there. I wanted to just have the figure in the middle, but on easel I just told it I have a 1/16 inch bit, and then put the V-bit in there and tried that, and I got a reasonable result. It's not pretty, and there'd be a lot of sanding involved, but yeah,
Absolutely.
so
I can say, if you want to play around with V-bits and you want a little bit more software assistance on it, we're still finalizing all of our testing before we fully recommend the product. But there's an application called Carbide Create, and it's Carbide 3D's version of easel for the Shape Oko machine. And that does not have a paywall preventing you from selecting a V-bit in your toolpath generator. So you can get a little bit more functionality out of that. Now the downside, and you might not see this as a downside, but it's just a call out. It is not an online utility. It is an application you have to download and install. But it's not difficult to use. You can still use SVG uploads. You can do your scaling. It took me a little while to understand the scaling, because they have a grid. They have a grid on the screen, but there's no like visual like metrics of how big each square is. But once you get an SVG in there, if you select it and you start changing the size, in the upper left-hand corner, it'll show you the actual like size value for what you're interacting with. So it's a little bit, it's a different flavor, but it does give you the ability to create V-bit specific toolpaths without paying the Easel Pro subscription.
Okay, and I'm a Linux user. That's a Windows application though, right?
No, I run it on Mac, so I would think they'd have to have a Linux kernel if they're supporting Windows or Mac.
All right, I'll check it out. Yeah, thank you.
Perfect.
I found this Carve program, and that runs only on Windows, but it does a pretty good job. You know, because it shows the V-bit and it tells you, you know, you can tell at what angle and how deep to go and things like that. And I got really good
Absolutely.
result there. But it
Oh
just
yeah, it looks amazing.
yeah, it just generates the G code from that. And so, but I just have a cheap 90-degree V-bit. I was hoping for like a 60-degree V-bit, but Amazon lost my shipping. So my
Nice.
package, they just said, oh, we're not going to get this to you. So you can just have a refund. So
Yeah, I've had that, and I know. So we have a flip flop 6090 V-bit.
okay.
That's a 60. It's a 60-degree on one end, and then if you flip the bit over, it's a 90-degree on the other side.
Yeah.
And then that's really meant to just be a great introduction to V-bit and allow you to know like which one that you like. And then as you progress into V-bits, the one that I really like is called a sign maker's bit, and it's a 15-degree V, but it's an 1.5 inch long cutter. So if you want to start doing like chamfers on full cut or get into like sign foam and a lot of other things, you can actually get to where you're doing beveled through cuts on a 15-degree angle using the sign maker's bit, or you can just do some 15-degree V carves with it as well.
Okay, cool. I haven't seen a 15-degree one, or I haven't looked that hard. Is that a what do they call it? Two flutes or?
It's a single. So it looks like a spade.
Oh, okay.
Let's see if I can find one real quick here.
That's the one that's flat on one side then, right?
Yes. So where's my camera? Okay, so here's my camera. So this is a sign maker's bit.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And then so it's flat on one side, but you can see how long the cut head is on
Yeah.
that. And it does a great job. I know I've been doing a lot of cutting Pink Panther foam and then putting epoxy resin over top of it to make like similar like fan art stuff, making things for like the kids' rooms and things that they can paint and everything. And it's just a really great way to make a light piece with heavy detail that you're not out a bunch of money if something happens and it gets destroyed during the cut. You know, $3 or $4, you can get another piece of foam and give it another go.
Sure. That's a really good idea. I haven't thought about foam yet. You say you put epoxy resin on it afterward?
Yeah, so I finish it with epoxy resin. You can use, so Total Boat makes like a really high end like boat epoxy that works really, really well, and it's kind of self-leveling. But I also have been known to just go buy like the pre-mixed stuff from Walmart, the Bondo brand, and it works well too. You just have to do a little bit more sanding because it'll get some air pockets every now and then. But it's a great project. I like you make really cool things, and that epoxy resin just really makes stuff super durable. It's really common in like 3D printing and stuff as well. So.
Okay, cool. Thanks for the tips.
Absolutely. Hey guys, I have to step away for just 15 minutes really fast, so I'll let Mike run everything, and then I'll be right back.
I sent you a text, Chris. We can talk about it later.
Any other questions, guys?
I've learned a lot on this call. Thank you guys, even with all the questions that you guys are having. Thank you.
We're trying to do our best. You know, every situation is different. You know, like Chris was saying, you know, those measurements mean a lot. You know, if you're going to put in something in your board, your measurement, you know, if you don't think it's a 4x8 and it's actually, you know, it's not 48 inches, it's actually 48.5. Well, you need to put that number inside that. It only knows what you put in it. Any other questions?
Well, as long as we're killing time, I'm just making my frame right now, and it's a metal frame, and the way it has to be designed, well, let me rephrase that, the way I designed it, the chains come up from the bottom, go over the motor sprocket, and then I have to have another idler sprocket on it to put it down below so I can run the chain horizontally underneath the metal beams that I've got. Is there a distance that sprocket should be down, or does it matter, or, you know, dealer's choice, or?
Tell me, give me more of a detail. Do you have a photo by any chance?
I don't have it on, you know, I'm in the house. I'm not out in my shop. If you just take the motor sprocket,
Okay.
and the chain comes, let's do the left-hand side. When it comes up from the left, goes over clockwise around the sprocket,
Okay.
and then it comes back down, and then it would normally go horizontally over to the spring. But in this case, I have to force it down because I need to put it underneath some beams that are there to hold it. So I need to put an idler sprocket just to the right of the motor to drop it down so that the horizontal chain can go underneath some stuff.
Yeah. As of right now, I mean, I don't know what measurements you would put in. I'm trying to get a visual. I do understand exactly what you're saying, but you know, whatever works for you. It all depends.
Yeah, you see, I see some people put them far out, some of them close in, you know, and I just wondered if anybody knew or cared, or it makes no difference, or I guess it doesn't probably make any difference. If it works, it works.
Yeah, if it works, it works. Right now, I mean, if it works for you, then it works for you. You know, some things that work for me might not work for other people.
All right, thanks.
Of course. Anybody else having any kind of connection issues or any kind of technical problems? Anybody on here that does not have an M2 and is thinking about getting one? Austin, you have any other questions, Austin?
I've got another project that I worked on. My wife put a beach theme in one of our bedrooms, and she wanted me to make her a sign. So I said, well, what do you want on the sign? And because I could literally make anything. She's like, I don't know, just say beach. And I was like, come on, we got to do better than that. So she's painting it right now, but I just took some things from Easel, some of the free things like this drink one, and
yeah,
these waves are from a shark, and I just deleted the shark, but then, you know, then just used a straight, I think I used a compression bit, a 1/16 or a 1/8 compression bit. And the words are a little messy. I'm going to sand it once she's done painting, but it's a project that I've been working on.
it looks good.
Thanks. Yeah, it was fun. It was fun to give her something that I said, you could literally put anything on there. Let's just come up with something funny or different, you know.
That's awesome. How long did it take you? How long did that project take you?
Not very long. I'm getting pretty good at easel, at least laying it out in easel and getting it cut. Let me see. It had a lot of lettering, so it probably took almost maybe an hour, maybe when it printed or when it carved. But you know, she's painting it up, and then we've got to sand it and, you know, hang it on the wall and stuff. So, but I've been liking making stuff, and I bought a bunch of plywood for. I made one of the desks, or the desk for my garage. I'd like what Drew has, those mobile carts, but I don't have the hospital nearby that I can buy them from. So
you could use yeah. And what sucks too is the auction company I used to buy all this stuff from, when the one of the owners died, and his wife decided that she wanted to sell the company, so they sold it and shut it down. I was like, no, where am I supposed to get all my crap now?
Yeah.
It's like I've been using it for 15 years. If you're liking practicing and stuff like that, I'll show you something fun you can do that we did. Let's see if I go to our conference room. Sorry. Okay.
Drew, you're interested in doing some in-person classes?
Yeah, I've honestly been trying to. If you're in San Antonio, or if y'all want to do like a Zoom, I've been getting all our guys caught to speed on using them. They've been doing some stuff, but this is actually it's actually that purple foam board you buy at Home Depot.
Cool.
It's really cheap. We just spray painted it. Yep. So we just laser engraved it and then spray painted it. Or not laser engraved. Sorry. Did it with the mask on and spray painted it. So. But that stuff's super cheap. So if you want some practice stuff to practice with thicker things and other stuff like that without having to buy some of the expensive wood, that stuff's great to do that with.
How much did you spend on that?
Oh god, I think that stuff's like $8 a sheet, something like that. $10 a sheet.
That's how you practice. That's good. That's a good idea.
Yeah, it's a great way to practice. And then we scrap about everything, so I scrap all kinds of great stuff. And I've got another one here which I'm rebuilding right now. That's not. I'm just using cheap casters on that thing.
How big is your shop?
We've got 22,000 square feet, so it goes way down. We've got all kinds of stuff way down that way. So kind of got divided into like this is the Maslow room or the Maker Made room, as we call it. And so if you don't have the carts, one thing you can do, it's really nice. So I went on Amazon. These little mounts are super cheap. And so they're the monster arms. And so I just mounted the machines on this one. This one, there's no cart. So honestly, I want to get to where I'm just mounting the machine again. I always put a UPS on there just in case, we have power outage, stuff like that. But
yeah,
so, but that's a simple way of getting the carts. And those things are like $15-20 on Amazon. But yeah, so yeah, this is our woodworking area with this mess. Then we have metalworking, and then all the offices and up there is the big lasers and stuff like that. So then other side, electronics labs are upstairs. But yeah, there's some fun stuff to practice with. This stuff's also fun to practice with. For cheap, it's just like an MDF. It's pretty good. But yeah, they're a lot of fun. The masks also been a lot of fun. Our first one my wife was asking me what I want for Father's Day a couple of years ago. I was like, I want a Maslow. I want to make a big Maslow so bad. So that was my first one, my Father's Day present. So, but yeah, there's some cool stuff you can do. Like if you're looking at different carts, I've seen there's people that are doing metal frames. I really want to do a plasma on one day because you have the new M2, you have a lot of IO, which that's one thing they're working right now with is we have some of the IO ports for trying to figure out why one of the IO ports isn't I'm setting the wrong G code commands to it. So like this is the spindle IO here, and then this one's one of the other IOs that no matter what G code commands I send to it, I'm not doing the G code commands right. So trying to figure that out. But yeah, but easel makes it really easy. This is a project one of my guys doing. He was learning how to use it, and my training for them has been to make because we've just had so much stuff going on. I was like, look, y'all just got to go online, watch the videos, go on the forum, and figure it out. And they've been able to figure it out. And the guy that was doing this one he's not a tech guy. I mean, so he was able to figure it out. He got easel figured out. Was able to get some stuff going, which is cool. So it's not too bad to learn. It's a little bit set up, but it's worth it. And it's by far worth it. We've been, and the new setup is actually, the new calibration on that's a lot easier. I really like how they do the new calibration. So, I don't know, but I would definitely recommend everybody go to the Facebook group and check that out. There's a great support team in there.
Yeah, I just joined, so I'm definitely going to look through that to see if I can get some questions answered.
Yeah, and if you ask questions, the support team at Maker Made is amazing. So we have tons of machines. I have everything from big ol', um, 10,000 pound mills over on the other side, the big industrial mills that were made for doing oil rig parts, to, you know, the Crossfire, the Plasma CNC. That and Plasma, they're kind of like Maker Made, but their support, their documentation is nothing like Maker Made. The Maker Made community is so amazing. So if you look at some of these other products, it's like I've had trying to get people to learn how to use them and stuff like that. Yeah, Maker Made does an amazing job between their support team and between the Facebook group and everything else. They have I mean, obviously we're fanboys of Maker Made. You can't tell by the warehouse. So. For fan game, yeah. So, and there's all kinds of fun stuff you can do. One thing I did send the bricks. We have a bunch of scrap metal. So this is actually just 1-inch steel. I was playing with the powder coating. So instead of bricks, I cut these to, I think it's like 8 pounds each. I forget what the weight they were. And so, just did them and powder coated them. I bought a Harbor Freight powder coater, and I had an old oven one of my neighbors was throwing away. And so I was like, I'm gonna do powder coating. And so that's what so that was my first powder coating jobs. But it's kind of fun. So there's all kinds of little modifications you can do. This is a laser module we're working on. So it's got a laser in it right now. Yeah. I don't know. Is there any other cool mods? Yeah. Is there any other cool mods anybody's done? Or wants to do? Like what thing they would like to do with their mouse though?
I would like to turn that into plastic cutter, but a lot, sure.
That's what I want to do. So I was thinking, so I have my plasma cutters over there, but I was thinking is, if I did a metal backboard on here, or, and then just did a water tray down here, so that all the sparks just splash down to it, that'd be kind of cool. One of these days.
Yeah, you would just have to do all that with metal instead of, or would you do that? Would you replace your frame, or just leave it with wood?
Yeah, we could leave it with wood. It'd probably catch fire, but yeah, I would do it. I would replace it with metal. So, and I'd do a slat metal.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. But the only thing is to hold those metal pieces, because they're heavy. It's bad enough to hold the pieces right now with the Maslow,
Yeah, it'd be interesting, but there's all kinds of fun things you can do with them. Yeah, I definitely recommend if you're going to be doing a lot, don't use the shop vac. So we have shop vacs that wear out. If you go to Harbor Freight, one thing I recommend a lot of people do: go to Harbor Freight and get you a
dust collector.
Dust collectors, yeah. Super easy. Makes it super easy. That's one thing. And that one, I think that dust collector with the Q phone was like $100-something. That's like a 5 horsepower. And I bought one of the remote switches, so we don't have to run over to it every time. But then I have it running to all the tables and stuff. But it's definitely worth it if you get a dust collector, because your shop vac starts designed to run for long periods of time. You'll burn them out.
I can attest to that. I burned out my shop vac too. So
yeah. There's all kinds of things to do, but yeah, this one I'm just using like cheap casters on. And I think those were like the $3 casters. I don't know if you can see them. Those people follow me. Oh, nope, it's not gonna follow me. Wait, I'm using a Facebook portal, so it has it has a smart camera. Nope, it's not gonna follow me. But anyways, this guy, I have like, oh, there it goes. I've got
follows you.
Yeah, I've got cheap little casters on that one, so, and it works good. But I don't know, I try to think of like little tips to make it like easier, fun when you're starting to mess with them. And one thing, if you know stuff, check out the Raspberry Pi image, because if you're wanting the little workstations, like you're talking about the carts and all that. So I don't really do any design stuff on these. I do it all in my office, and we take all the design file. We have just our network here, so we have a shared drive with everything on them. But one thing, the Raspberry Pi image is really nice. You just want a simple way to have this all nice and clean and easy to go. Raspberry Pi is great to have for those. It's not too bad to deploy that image. It's not. They've got pretty easily. The other thing I did is these are on Amazon, and so I've accidentally busted a few chains and springs and like stretched that spring accidentally. So if I'm in a robot, I have an emergency stop button. And these are like $20. Or plugged in. I'm sorry?
That stop button is necessary sometimes.
Yeah. we still use it to this day. We start fires here. We do. Actually, I got a spark in my dust collector the other day, which was fun. It was a big flame went up. But yeah, don't use a laser with this dust collector. Bad idea.
I have a question. I noticed on the back there, is that your material you're carving out?
So this one is, so what I do for these, which is, I buy, this is that cheap stuff. You can buy the whiteboard version too. It's a cheap like shower board. And so I put this on top of my backboard, my wasteboard.
Oh, okay.
And it makes it really nice. So this stuff's like $12 a sheet. And then what we have in here, if it's hard to tell, but let me pull this out of the jig real quick. What we have in calibration is, and this one's got a little messed up, but you get a pattern in it just for calibration. So we can know where 0 is, stuff like that. So if you look at it, you can set a 0. I'm going to stand here real quick. That's 200. So you can see where the 0 is and other things here. So it's kind of nice. I would definitely recommend doing that. It makes it really easy on your on your wasteboard. And then if you tear up your wasteboard, like our other one over there, you saw that one after 2 years of use, you got it caught on one time. We had with the old M1, we had one of the spindles get stuck, and I have cameras on them, but I went home and luckily I'm down the street, but it jammed, the router broke and jammed. I was looking at the cameras, I was like, man, why are the cameras so foggy? And I was like, oh shit. I realized exactly what it was. It was smoke. And so now we also have smoke detectors above them, but yeah, but the M2 doesn't have that issue. The M2 has that. Yep.
So when you get your material you want to carve into, you have to line that up with, I guess what we were talking about earlier, temporary home, like at that exact spot where you want it to start cutting. Is that correct? Is that how you do that? It's like you have to find on your wasteboard where you want your material to be centered.
You can also
you get what I'm saying? Like how do you get your work material positioned exactly where it needs to be on your wasteboard?
So there's things you can do. So the one thing we always do, so we square it. So you want to make sure your frame's squared and everything else. Otherwise, it can be tilted. But a lot of times, if we know the size and stuff like that, like this one we put in here, and you can set a 0 point. So you can set where it's going to start. You can set where your project starts in easel. And so open one real quick.
Yeah, Austin. So what you can do is you can jog it to wherever you want on the board when you have your cut board on there. And you can say, this is my temporary home. And it just remembers that as a 0 spot for cutting out stuff. And I did that to make use of all the material, because I'll cut a piece out that's this big, and then I'll move it over here, and then you can cut it out again or do whatever you need. But you just, when you have your board on there, you just put it wherever you want. It doesn't have to be cut out of the middle. You can cut it out of the upper corner, or when you do a big cut, you have lots of leftover, and then you kind of move your board in there. And what I do is I'll measure how big the project is, and I'll say, okay, this one's 14 by 12, and I need to make sure that I have enough plywood that's 14 by 12. So I'll get my tape measure out, and I'll put a little X in the lower left-hand corner where I want the bit to go, and I'll jog it to get to that bit, and then make sure that the bit's right over that X, and then I'll set that as my temporary home, so that I can cut it out, and then it'll go back there after the cut's done. But then you can move, and put your temporary home somewhere else. I never reset my chains, is what you were talking about earlier. I just move the temporary home all over the place to optimize the use of my material. Go ahead.
It's way easier too when you have a piece of material like jigged on there. It makes it so much easier than taking the material off, re-screwing it down, reattaching, stuff like that. So you can home it. Have you ever used lasers before at all? Any laser cutters?
No, never.
It's a lot like you'll have with laser cutters too. And so that's why we have this grid on here too. And so I can easily make sure, even if I mount a piece up here, I can make sure it's square really easy, just because I can just square the jigs up here without having to do it. So that way, it's more designed. This was designed to make it easier to square things and other pieces.
So really, if I have like a 4x4 piece of cut material, I can put that anywhere on my wasteboard and then just jog the machine over to the position where it needs to start.
Yeah. Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
The only thing you will get sometimes, you'll get soft limit alerts. So let's say you put it all the way up the top corner, and the sled needs to go up to that very top corner. Depending on how your calibration is, it's on you're gonna hit some soft limits if it tries to make it that your G code, where it's gonna pop up and say, hey, you're outside the bounds of your workspace.
Yeah.
Even when you still have room to move, depending how you calibrated it, you'll get the soft limits, which is good. It's going to save you from busting a chain or busting other things, which I've accidentally ripped a whole entire. We accidentally, with the original one, I was screwing around doing some. You go to accidentally rip the whole entire, what do you call it? The whole entire sled apart. Like ripped it. I set the wrong G code settings, and I was manually doing some G code, and it pulled the bolt out. It ripped it apart. So. But yeah, so there's things, but they're pretty fun. But yeah, it's not bad setup too, because when you look at what they were years ago, it used to be so expensive, and now, I mean, versus a $20,000 shop bot, $30,000 shop bot, honestly, there's so many things you can do with these. It's just, and there's other software you can use too. You have so many choices and options of software you can use. Like we use Fusion 360, we use other things, and so for us having this is like right now I'm using CNC for some test stuff that we're doing, but so they're just a lot of fun, and you can do acrylic. Sorry?
Do you ever have issues of your computers getting junked up with dust, or does the dust collector do a pretty good job at keeping everything clean?
Oh no, everything is stuck with dust. That's why I have 3 separate warehouses. So the metal warehouse is down there, and this is the wood warehouse. If you can see our floor right now, oh yeah, it's everything is junked up with dust. Now the computers, so you don't need a super powerful computer to run this thing. So I used to have a computer resale center. We used to distribute off-lease computers to computer shops. So I used to buy thousands and thousands of computers a month. So back in the day, so I still I have more computers than we know what to do with at this point. So that's why I have all these piled up. But these are just like, I mean, this one's, I forget what, yeah, this is Core i7 with, I think this one has, it's a little Dell workstation, but Core i7 probably 8 or 16 gigs of RAM. And, but I've used other things, like this is probably a 12-year-old, 10-year-old HP, but I think it's a 2nd or 3rd gen Core i7. It's a 2nd gen Core i5 with 8 gigs of RAM, DDR3, and that thing works fine. And yeah, it's covered in dust. But I blow them out. I always keep a compressor. So one thing, use one of those compressors. And if you're worried about noise, one thing you can always do too is you can get. One of the things I want to move to is I have a bunch of water chillers, and so I'm looking at doing a spindle instead of the router. Doing a water chill spindle, or doing you can do an air chilled spindle or air cooled spindle too, but I want to do a water cooled spindle because I think that'd be amazing. And they have all kinds of different mounts. The guys at Maker Made have a whole bunch of different mounts you can do. So
cool.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think of any
So I guess if I bring my laptop into my work shed and run this Maker Made expect it to get dusty and dirty, or otherwise put some type of covering over it so it doesn't get clogged up?
Well, if your dust collector's doing if the dust collector running good, it's not that bad. I'm just bad about running our dust collectors all the time. So that's part of the problem. If you run your dust collector, and if you get a good dust collector, like there's some nice jet dust collectors and stuff like that. My friend had his shop. It's meticulous, and so he also runs a $2,000 jet dust collector with HEPA filters that automatically stirs the filters. So it's a lot outside of what I was going to spend on dust collector. If it starts getting too dusty, I just take the leaf blower and blow it all out the bay doors. So we have big bay doors. But yeah, it's not too bad depending on your dust collector, especially with the new sled. You can adjust the sled pretty good to keep it down. So.
All right, guys. It looks like we went a little bit overboard on the call. Any other questions before we hang up?
Yeah, I've just got one, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just switched mine on today. I've not used it in a week or so, and I'm getting a problem connecting up with the USB. It's saying unable to detect firmverse.
Okay.
For my
what version of Makerverse are you using? Are you using Makerverse 1.06 or 1.1.2?
I think it was the one downloaded from your website, so it should be, I imagine, the...
Once you download it.
Hang on, sorry, 2 seconds, I'll have a quick look. Because I did try reinstalling another version, so...
You may check are you using Windows or Mac?
Windows 10.
Okay, double check if you go under your device manager, make sure sometimes Windows will change your COM ports on you. So where you were before, maybe on COM 3 or something like that, you may all of a sudden be on like a COM 1 or COM 2. So you might double check that.
Yeah, because I think it was on COM port 3 and now it's recognizing it as COM port 4.
Yeah, there you go. That's usually what I see with Windows. I'll see a lot of times the COM ports jump on you.
So I just have to switch it back to 3, do I?
Oh no, just tell Makerverse when you connect. Just make sure you set to change Makerverse to COM 4 instead of COM 3.
Yeah, but I'm running a Surface Pro, so it only actually has one USB on it.
It won't matter the USB the serial port. So it's using an RS-232. So it's using what it's doing is it's doing an old serial connection. So it's doing serial over USB. So it's a virtual COM port. So that's why I'll change sometimes on you. So even though you only have one USB port, even though you're plugging the same USB port, sometimes Windows 10, that may be COM 4, it may be COM 3. It depends how the IOs are getting used in the OS at the time. So let's say you plug a mouse or something else in. Sometimes those it'll switch and it'll assign that COM 3 to something, and then when you plug it in, and a lot of times it'll be COM 3 through 5 is what you'll see. COM 3, 4, or 5 is what you'll see it pop up as in 10.
Sorry, how do I sort of change that back, or how do I get that working again?
So if you go to Makerverse, so if you look and see what COM ports it's showing right now in device manager.
On Makerverse.
In Makerverse, if you go to try, so in your computer, it's showing up as COM 4.
It's showing up as COM port 4, yeah.
Okay, so then just in Makerverse, just set it. Let me pull up Makerverse here. Sorry. So when you go to Connect, going under connection, let me see if I can pull this. Let me move the card. Under connection. When you open Makerverse, change your COM port to COM 4 right here.
Yeah.
And you can hit refresh too there, and that refresh will will allow you to see what ports it's seeing, your computer seeing.
Yeah, when I connect up though, I just get this. I just get a notification to say firmware not recognized. I think I think I'm doing it right, but maybe I'm not. It just says unable to detect firmware version.
Oh, unable to detect firmware version?
Yeah.
Unplug your Raspberry Pi, or unplug your Arduino. Unplug the power and the USB cable. Both.
Yeah, I've done that, yeah.
Did you do that?
Yeah.
because your USB, if your USB cord's still plugged in, it's still going to get power. So make sure you unplug the power cable and the USB cable to reset, to do a hard reset on your Arduino.
Yeah.
And then under ports, hit the refresh button right here, and then the drop down menu, see what ports it's seeing, and Makerverse.
Right. Okay. I'll give it another go. I mean, I've got it here, so it's disconnected at the moment, but so it should have reset. So I'll try that again now.
Yeah. See what happens, and
I'll
If
try
not,
that.
you know, if not, send me a message to support@makermade.com, and then I'll pencil you in. That way, whenever I have availability. Today I'm booked, like I was saying that somewhere, but if I have time, I'm gonna reach out to her first, and then if I have time today, I'll reach out to you. If not, we can schedule something for tomorrow.
Oh yeah, no rush today. I mean, I'm in the UK, so it's gone 5 o'clock now anyway over here. So yeah, no, tomorrow's perfect.
Are you on Facebook?
Yeah.
If you connect with me on Facebook, I'll be around for a little bit. I can help you for a little bit if you want. See if we can get connect me on Facebook. It's DR. That's my name there, Drew Plessett on Facebook.
Super.
That's
great.
I should be the only Drew Plessett because I think there's only 20 Plessetts in the world, so not very many of us.
No problem. Perfect. Thank you very much.
Yeah, if you want to do that, and then that way until if Mike's busy or whatever, then that way I'll try to see if I can help you. And if not, then they'll get you fixed up for sure. But if you want to Facebook me after this, I'll try to help you real quick.
Super. Thank you very much.
We got it.
All right, guys. Well, it was good talking to everyone. See you all next
Thanks a
week.
lot.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank
Bye,
you
guys.
guys. Bye-bye.
Of course. Bye.